think about Eleanor Bumpers? One of the positive aspects of her death has been the transformation of her daughter Mary from an eyesore into a very properly coiffed, 20 pounds lighter and generally cleaner looking person. And one of the things that she's definitely lying about is she says that she never got letters about her mother's condition, but I'm sure that she didn't miss a welfare check, as there's been no mention of the failure of the post office by anyone who's supporting her. What do you think about that, Mr. Grant?
Well, I think that's a very astute observation. Also, she's never been able to prove false. The record shows that 8 times she and other members of the family were notified by the HRA that her mother was in danger of losing the apartment, that her mother needed some help. And they had written to members of the family saying, aren't you going to do anything about your mother? But apparently Mrs. Bumpers didn't become officially their mother until she was deceased.
Well, where do you think she's getting the money for this new image that she's projecting?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it takes that much money to have a hairstyle and maybe lose a few pounds and get a couple of new garments. You don't see her every day, so, in all fairness, we can't say that she's got a brand new wardrobe entirely and suddenly living in the lap of luxury.
Yes, well, she does seem to be projecting a new self, and I was just wondering who might be advising her. I think it maybe is a much overused word, some sort of coalition to make the city look foolish. But at least it's on tape of what she looked like. The cops were up against King Kong. Now,
no, they're just pointing out that this was no ordinary person, that this was a person who was made unnaturally strong and unnaturally dangerous by her psychotic condition. There's no one who's denied the fact that she's a psychotic. There's no one who's questioned her. No one who's questioned her mental condition, not even the family.
How do you know she's strong?
I know that she's strong because I talked to one of Stephen Sullivan's partners on this broadcast last Monday or Tuesday night.
That's the problem, Bob. I want you to understand.
That's the problem, Bob.
No, I'm going to explain.
That's the problem, Bob.
Yeah.
How do you know she's that strong? Well, I talked to one of the people who confronted her. Oh, that's the problem. Yeah. Who should I talk to? Some guy down the block?
No,
who was away on vacation at the time?
That's the problem with the cops. Let me speak.
Well, why don't you just admit that you don't like police?
No, hold on.
Probably you got arrested one time, and you didn't like it.
No.
No, not much.
No.
I can tell a cop hater when I hear one.
Did you see Serpico?
That was a movie, pal.
Yeah, it was based on facts. Do you know what the statement of the movie was?
There were so many questions about Frank Serpico and his peculiarities.
Uh-huh. Hey, listen.
But here, again, you want to bring in an issue that is really not relevant to what we're talking about.
I want to talk about the cops' mentality.
Why don't you admit that you just don't like cops?
I like cops.
Oh, you do not.
Yes, I do. Freshened up. They walked him around. He was sober.
And where were you all this time?
Excuse me?
Where were you all this time?
Where was I was...
Why do you repeat the question? You stalling for time to try to think up some cockamamie phony answer?
You think I'm making it up?
Yes, I do. I think you're making it up. I can't believe that the cops would have put their arm around you and had you with them the whole time and said, watch us go through this whole scenario. We're going to walk this guy around. We're going to sober him up. We're going to sweeten his breath. You stick around. You stay with us.
You don't think cops protect other cops?
You haven't been able to tell me what your vantage point was, how you know this. And you know what? You've just exposed yourself as being a two-bit fraud, phony creep. Yo, hello, Frank.
Yes, Bob?
Yes.
Bob, I can't seem to understand the foreign policy of this country. As you know, the Soviets are facing wars of national liberation within their empire, which is the exact opposite of the wars of liberation we saw them wage against in the 1960s. Yet the Congress of this country has denied aid to the heroic non-communist freedom fighters of Kampuchea. Why has the Congress also denied aid to insurgent groups in Africa while at the same time giving aid to the government of Mozambique under the absurd illusion that by propping up these Marxist-led cannibals that they're going to wean them away from their Soviet slave masters? Why does the Congress continue to deny aid to the heroic freedom fighters of Nicaragua who are seeking to liberate their fatherland? What kind of treason is involved in this?
Yeah, those are good questions. Those are good questions, Frank, and questions that boggle the mind because the answer that I'm forced to come up with after giving what you're asking a lot of serious thought is that there are too many members in Congress, and let's be fair, not all members of Congress really are guilty of this, but the majority of congressmen are guilty of being brainwashed to the extent that somehow or other, if you're trying to overthrow a communist regime, you're doing something that is going to get this country into a lot of trouble. Whereas if you try to destabilize Pinochet, and believe me, I have no affection for Pinochet, and I in no way approve of his regime, but they would encourage any kind of contra attempt in Chile, you know, Frank.
Oh, of course.
You're aware of that. That they would encourage. If it's to topple Marcos, they would encourage that. And again, I have no brief for Marcos. As a matter of fact, I think Marcos is a skunk. Pinochet is a skunk.
Well, let me say this, Bob, about Marcos. You know, he fought as a guerrilla in the Philippines in World War II, and he is credited with saving the lives of many thousands of American servicemen. He was a staunch ally of this country, and unfortunately, the liberals expect instant democracy overnight, and they seem to forget who their friends were. We may not agree with certain things he does, but we can never forget the American lives that he saved.
That's a good point, Frank.
Thank you, Bob.
That's a good point. Thank you very much. And Frank points out a hypocrisy that most people maybe haven't noticed, but it's absolutely revolting.
Nothing in the Post concerning Cuomo's remarks about the sort of blaming the middle class and criticizing them for their attitude towards crime. You know, I was sort of upset about that, and I kind of felt that it was unfair and rather inaccurate and stupid. Did you read that article in the Post?
I think all three of those adjectives are appropriate.
I'm glad you agree with me. But I really was upset about that. You know, I thought, why?
Well, that wasn't hidden, you know. The Post did give it a headline.
Yeah.
A headline reading. Yeah.
Well, what do you make of that?
I think you characterized it correctly.
Yeah.
I think he was trying. I think what happened was that the governor got caught up in a problem that he has, a psychological problem.
Yeah.
Ever since he read critiques on him from the self-anointed media saying that he was a great intellect, which of course he is.
Well, is he?
No, he has a very keen intellect, but in playing to the media,
Yeah.
an aspect of the media anyway, I think that he's prone to make these statements which are on the face absurd. Perfect.
I've never seen a warmer and nicer human being.
You said you had a triple bypass?
Quadruple, yes.
Quadruple? And you're back home in 3 days?
I was, no, 16 days ago.
Oh, 16 days.
4 days now. I only missed 2 shows, right, the day of the operation and 2 days after. Probably 3 shows. But you made my days, my nights there. And incidentally, you know, your show can be a good soporific because the more interesting it gets, the more relaxed you get and you fall asleep.
Oh boy!
It's true. I found that I fall asleep listening.
Well, we'll try to keep it dull so you don't fall asleep.
Right.
Well, Marty, I appreciate that. To think that you only missed 2 shows in 16 days.
Three shows.
3 shows in 16 days.
Yeah.
What would have happened if this 11-year-old had been caught and had been shot by the police because he was armed? What do you think the reaction of his parents?
I think there would be a hue and cry, depending on the complexion of the police officers and the complexion of the 11-year-old. If they matched, I don't think there would be too much of a hue and cry. Some, but not much.
Yeah.
If they didn't match, then look out.
Oh, yes. What I would like to talk about, your definition of mutants. Why do you refer to black people as mutants?
Well, I don't refer to black people as mutants. I refer to criminals who are perpetually committing crimes against society as mutants.
Mystic.
And let me tell you something, pal. You look up the word mutant in the dictionary, you'll see it has nothing to do with any person's race. Joe, I think you have a serious, serious problem.
Why can't the people from Connecticut call you?
Oh, I was being facetious. They can call, but because nobody was using the line, I was being facetious. As a matter of fact, we've had busy lines on every outlet except Connecticut. I think we had one call from Connecticut today.
Oh.
Maybe they're busy with Alai and Bridgeport. I have no idea.
You gotta be kidding, Bob.
Phil, I'm trying to get information from you. I don't feel like playing games. What is there you don't believe?
Huh?
What is there you don't believe?
What is there? I don't believe that there's one detective, policeman in that 110th precinct that goes to work and don't know what's going on around there. That's all I have to say. And this story proves it. I mean, this is...
You haven't proven a thing. You haven't proven a thing by your sketchy reportage.
I just made my phone call.
Phil, you're not a well man. You know that.
What are you coming down on me for?
Because you're not a well man. That's why.
Well, I never met a guy that was so on the way to self-destruct as you are.
I'm on my way to self-destruct. In what way? Because I tell people what is all too painfully obvious anyway? That you're not a well man?
Well, I just said the same thing about you, Bob. I don't think you're a...
Now, how could you say that? We're having a conversation right now. You called me, right? You called me, didn't you?
Of course.
Why did you call me?
Why did I call you?
Yes.
Because I have a right to call you like everybody.
I didn't ask whether you have a right. Of course you have a right. But what was your purpose?
The purpose in explaining this story that was in the...
But what did you want from me? Why tell me?
That isn't what... I mean, I just wanted to tell you what things are really like in this city. I mean, you seem to...
Oh, well, Phil, if it weren't for you, how would we know?
Well, you don't...
Where's your disability, by the way, Phil? What was your disability?
Let me tell you something.
Phil, what was your disability?
Okay.
You're the guy that called and made a grandstand play the last time that you had a disability. And when I asked you what it was, you couldn't tell me.
I don't have a disability. I just happen to have someone in my family that has a disability.
The last time you said it was you. Phil, you're hallucinating. You've just revealed to everybody listening that you're not to be believed. That you're not only are you sick, but you're a phony as well, Phil. A two-bit phony. Ambition against anybody?
Well, I do. I said that she knows herself. However...
Hey, look, she probably looked around and saw all the other misfits that got elected mayor in the long history. You know, we've had 105 of them.
I know.
She probably thinks of the Tower of Jelly, who was one of the worst blots on the city of New York in its entire history.
I'm from Manhattan, and I just wanted to say that I am extremely proud that Governor Reagan put at the disposal of Jerry Levin's family a plane to take them to Germany and bring them back when he is not a government employee or in the diplomatic service. He's in the private sector. Why didn't CNN, with whom Jerry Levin works, provide an airplane for him and his...
Well, I'll tell you why. Because if a person is kidnapped, and that person is an American citizen, and they're held a hostage, then they become not just some schlub. And even if it were you, your little skinflint, even you, they'd do the same thing for you.
Oh, God.
Because you're an American citizen. Wah, wah, wah. I tell you, people come up with the darndest things. Things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Grant. Thank you for being with us. And reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Kaddafi. I think I'll declare my first official amnesty since coming over to WABC. And what that is anybody I've declared persona non grata, anybody whose feelings I've hurt and you've sworn off, I declare now an amnesty. That goes for Kathy of North Bergen, Linda, let's see, there was Kathy, Linda, and whoever else. Now, Kathy of North Bergen, or Linda, or whoever, if you're not listening right now, it's okay. You still come under the amnesty, listening or not. And even though you may not be listening, I know you're hearing this official amnesty. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, Rudolph Giuliani.
That I was a young lawyer in the United States Attorney's Office, an assistant United States attorney. It's a job I've always wanted. I actually left being my own superior to take the job. I was Associate Attorney General in the Reagan administration for the first 2.5 years. And when the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York opened up, I decided that I wanted to go back and be on the line and prosecute cases. I enjoyed doing it. Had a very, very beneficial effect in cutting down heroin trafficking, number one, and restoring some sense of security for the people in those communities. We are partners with him in the sense that once a week, we take cases into the federal court, street-level cases made by the New York City Police Department. My assistants go to the precincts, and we take a certain number of cases into the federal court, and we call that Federal Day. And there are now 3 or 4 of them each week. And what happens in federal court is that they are held on very high bail, or bail that at least is difficult for them to make, so they don't go right back out on the street, which is what is happening to them, unfortunately, in state court. And number 2, they go to prison. Up to date now, we've been doing this over a year plus. We have 403 cases. 90% of those cases that have reached conclusion have been convictions, and 80% of them have gone to prison, which is a very, very high rate. 8 out of every 10 persons arrested on the street for drug dealing goes to prison at the conclusion of the case. Most of these people have long histories of arrests, having been brought to state court and having been released. The next thing that has to happen is that the state court system has to come into the 20th century. It has to be organized. Judges have to be made accountable. There should be an individual calendar system in the state courts like there is in the federal court, so that every judge is accountable for a case from just about the day that it starts. And there should be strict time limits placed on cases. Some of these cases drag through the courts for 2 years, 3 years.
Not in the federal courts.
Absolutely not. The same 403 people that I'm talking about basically run through the system in a 4-month period of time, from the day we arrest them until the day we're finished with them. Now, to the extent that we make mistakes sometimes, that's also very important for an innocent person, that this thing get over with quickly. However, I shouldn't create the illusion that there are an awful lot of innocent people being arrested. Of the cases that have gone to trial, there have been convictions in 99% of them. In the cases where arrests have been made, there have been convictions in 90% of them. So you're talking about some very solid work by the New York City Police Department. And I've got to tell you, the morale of those police officers that who work with us is incredibly high. Mayor Koch told me several weeks ago that the police department, when he was touring the Lower East Side, told him that when the drug dealers find out it is Federal Day, they try to run away from the cops, they fight, and it becomes dangerous. So that the police have taken steps to try and not make it clear that it's Federal Day, whereas if they get arrested on a regular day, they come along very easily because they know they're going to be back out on the street.
What do you mean by Federal Day?
By Federal Day, I mean those people arrested on that day go to federal court for the rest of their case, not to state court. We are in the position where drug crimes violate both federal law and state law. So I see it as a way in which we can help somewhat with the crime problem in the city.
Yes, I'm Ellen from New York, and I want to know, you just visited Ireland.
Well, it was in August and September.
I know you did a couple of years ago. How come that you know everything is so much about it?
I beg your pardon? How come what?
How come you know so much about it, and that you just different about you?
Well, I don't know what you mean by know so much about it. This sounds like you're trying to...
I think you did. It's not meaning nothing.
No, I have a couple of...
You said...
No, I don't know a lot about it. I don't know a lot about it. I just have some opinions because...
I think you did. You said you did.
Somebody's picking up the phone in your house. Is it your attendant? Is it the attendant?
No, I'm just...
Is it the orderly assigned to your case?
You're wearing Cork and Kerry and Limerick.
Yeah, so what? What's the big deal? A lot of people have been to those places.
But how do you know so much about it? You didn't live in it.
No, I didn't live in the Soviet Union either. I know quite a bit about the Soviet Union. Do you have something you want to say?
Just a moment, please. Please listen to me. You did not live in Ireland.
Do you have something you want to say? Do you want to talk about the IRA?
No, I don't.
Am I supposed to approve of the IRA because I didn't live in Ireland?
No, personally...
The IRA is a bunch of murdering no-good skunks. How does that grab you?
I don't like you saying that you know all about it since you didn't live it.
I never used the phrase, I know all about it. I never used that phrase.
Yes, you did, too. And I got news for you. If you want to...
Hey, listen, I ought to know if I use that phrase, and I never used that phrase.
Please listen.
Listen, you want to know something?
Want to push me?
You better get off the phone because your broom has arrived. Well, I don't want to sit here and sermonize about John Zaccaro. I don't want to be guilty of what the judge was guilty of. But I do resent very much the judge spending so much time telling us, in effect, had his wife not run for the vice presidency, he would have gotten away with it. That's what the judge was saying.
Oh.
You realize that?
Yes, I do.
Now we know why John Zaccaro looked so pained that day in July when Walter, polls don't vote, people vote, Mondale, said he had chosen the feisty one as his running mate.
That's right. Right you are, Bob, again.
And we should live so long to get $500,000 to do a 30-second Pepsi-Cola commercial as Madame Prominent Chin is going to be getting. You know about that, don't you?
Oh, I didn't. Is she really?
Huh?
Is she really?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Isn't that outrageous?
That's very interesting.
It's enough to make you believe Coke is the real thing, isn't it? Speaking of Bernard Goetz, I think his gesture to Mr. Fredericks, the young man who came to the aid of the candy store newspaper operator in the subway station, I think Mr. Goetz's gesture is a brilliant one. Those of you who may have seen Mr. Fredericks sobbing on television, I'm sure your heart went out to him. Here's somebody who tried to help somebody, a man who was attacked by a mutant. He resisted, he prevailed, and what happens? He winds up indicted. Well, I feel confident that Andy Frederick, depicted in the newspapers as the subway avenger who killed a candy thief on Thursday and rid the city, this state, this country, of a thief. I think that if justice is done, Mr. Frederick has nothing to worry about.
No, I just want to make a little comment here, and it's in reference to Mr. Kaddafi. I heard today he was on a satellite communication, and he was speaking to a group of blacks in Chicago, and these are blacks that are in his following. And he was informing the blacks that they were the first people in the United States before whites and Ronald Reagan. And he also said that the blacks should bear arms, form a separate state, and unite to get what's theirs. My question is, where did this guy Kaddafi get the consideration to speak like this, and who or what group of, you want to call them mutants, set up this satellite communication? You just don't turn on a switch and get Kaddafi on cable. And also, don't we have enough problems in this country without this idiot and other associated with him ranting and raving to start some kind of trouble over here?
Well, in answer to your question, he was invited by Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam in Chicago to speak to a meeting they were having in their mosque. It was paid for by Gaddafi. The cost of transmitting his likeness and his voice into the auditorium. Louis Farrakhan made a speech afterward thanking Gaddafi for his support. And Jesse Jackson's right-hand lady from Bush, also made a speech.
As far as Gaddafi's concerned, I mean, he'd be like the number one on the hit parade here to, eliminate that guy because he's in a lot of trouble. But
no kidding.
Just to get,
You know who you're talking to, and you got to tell me about Gaddafi?
Well, just to get you had said that these people spoke after he was done.
And we're aware of the fact that they are choosing to censor a story that is quite dramatic and quite important.
I think it is very important. It just tells how much.
And yet you could take a band of some maniac neo-Nazi creeps, 30 or 40 of them at the most, and they could burn some dumb cross somewhere, and they'd have all their cameras out there. You notice that?
True.
Isn't that true?
Well, I mean, it's like they don't want to touch it like it's a hot potato. I mean, to me, it's not America. You know.
Well, you know, if I were associated with Push, I wouldn't want this disseminated, because that woman who is Jesse Jackson's right-hand lady there.
Yeah.
She made the most flagrant speech of all of the three of them. As a matter of fact, the portions of the speech they showed Farrakhan making, for him it sounded very non-controversial.
The news, the big headlines. They're cleaning up New York City to get rid of all the crooks. The mob wanted. I hope they grab all these people who've been robbing the city for the last 5 families. Characters, including the Colombo family. Remember the Colombo family?
That's my buddy, yeah.
Yeah, the old Joe there, when you ran up to the hospital when he got shot. Remember that day?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We all embraced. We cried. That's right. You were there too. That's how you remember that, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't see your picture anywhere in the Colombo picture.
Well, you see.
I was waiting for it.
Well, you see, I use an alias.
Remember the time you came to New York? You left your wife and the 4 kids in California and hooked up with...
I use an alias. Paul Needlenose Menage.
Look what you've done to your family. You call people skunks. There's only one skunk in New York.
And that's me, right?
You're right.
That's right.
Look what you...
Hey, listen, how come it took you so long to call me over here at WABC?
I called you before when you called me a lot of names.
Yeah, but no, you haven't called me here at WABC yet.
Oh, I didn't. I wasn't in town. I was up in Kentucky.
What were you doing there?
I was just picking up some booze.
I figured you would be doing something like that. The trouble with you is, though, you don't sell that booze, you drink it all.
You're always calling people names.
You know, you're more out of breath than ever. Your emphysema's getting worse, isn't it? I want to be nice to this guy because he's not long for this world. Thank God. He would never tell a lie on the air.
Why were you kicked off of that radio station?
Kicked off of what? First we go from being indicted, suddenly I'm kicked off. From indicted to kicked off.
In Chicago.
I was never kicked off of any station in Chicago.
Okay.
There's no, I'm sorry, no scandal, no mystery. I hate to disappoint you, but very uneventful,
Why did you...
very quiet. I grew up there. I began my career. By the way, I don't owe you any explanation, you little 2-bit creep.
Why did you deserted your wife and 4 kids?
What is all this? What is all this? What are you trying to pull here?
I learned all this today.
What are you trying to pull? What are you trying to pull? By the way, where are you from, my friend? Where are you from?
This is where I learned.
Where are you from?
I heard all this about you today.
You heard all about this from who? In the saloon?
Well, probably.
Uh-huh.
Your wife and your 4 kids. You deserted them.
Well, I'm delighted that you're talking about me. I'm delighted that you're listening.
True that you're...
What did you tell the producer you wanted to talk about, by the way? What other talk show host would allow a sickie like that to go on and on over something totally irrelevant? I'll tell you who. An egomaniac like me. Heard, as a matter of fact, great gratification, ladies and gentlemen, because when you do the type of honest, hard-hitting program that we do here, when you don't play the hypocritical game of euphemism, when you dare to tell the truth, when you dare to say what other people only dare to think, and even then not too much, when you call a spade, you wind up getting a lot of people very upset for various reasons. One reason, the truth hurts. Another reason, there's some people that are paranoid, that are actually so afraid of the truth, even though they themselves have believed that same truth. I could go on and give you 100 different reasons why people have this great intensity, but let me tell you how gratified I am, deeply, genuinely gratified, at the volume of mail, and right now I'm thinking about all the mail that comes in, but I must say the tremendous plethora, the huge volume, the almost inexhaustible supply of what we call hate mail is very gratifying, because it tells me one thing. When you get this voluminous, incredible supply of this type of mail, it tells me that there are a lot of people listening. And that's really the goal. Not to get people to love me or hate me, agree with me or disagree with me, but to listen. Because maybe if they listen, then maybe they will think. And if they think, they will either understand their own views better, or maybe they will find that they have ameliorated their views. And so, I spent the last couple of hours attempting to read all the mail that had come in, and still fell short because the time just wouldn't permit. How do you feel about the Archbishop being in Central America, allowing that communist tin-horn skunk, Daniel Ortega, to use him and other Catholic leaders as propaganda tools? How do you feel about that? I have a great deal of admiration for the Archbishop. He is a dynamic spiritual leader and a very shrewd political leader as well. He is charming, he is beguiling. He radiates great strength. I have been in pursuit of the Archbishop in order to have a head-to-head, one-to-one interview with him, and we'll achieve that goal. And one of the first questions I will ask him is why he allowed himself to be used by Daniel Ortega, what he hoped to accomplish by going to Managua, Nicaragua. Because quite frankly, I don't know. Do you? Time's lead on things for today. Until tomorrow, this is Bob Kraft reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Kaddafi. I see that they still are after Bernie Goetz. And I guess there are some people who believe that so-called double jeopardy doesn't apply to certain individuals. A grand jury failed to indict, but there's a stirring out there to impanel another grand jury and indict him this time. It's all very weird. Now, naturally, the newspapers want to play all this up, and you can't blame them. They want to sell newspapers. It says Goetz took a second shot at still upright victim, cops. After shooting 4 teenagers who demanded money from him on a subway train, Death Wish gunman, now he's called the Death Wish gunman. Bernard Goetz examined one of them and said, "You don't look too bad, here's another," and calmly shot at him again. But you know what was terrible about that? That's right. His aim wasn't good. A letter to Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau is even more important. And, of course, guess who's jumping all over that? That bleeding heart of all bleeding hearts. That fellow who has a guilt complex that never ends. The scourge of McGuire's Lounge out on Queens Boulevard. Jimmy, my heart bleeds, Breslin.
Commend our president for the way he has handled the situation in Central America. And I believe that the only way to deal with the communists is through strength.
And I am from Cuba, and I know exactly what is going on in Nicaragua. And I know what the results have been because of the pressure that our smart president has put on this Mr. Ortega.
Well, it's my view that Ortega is talking the way he's talking only because he doesn't want Congress to allocate that $14 million for the Contras.
I agree. He's being very smart. I think he has learned a lot from that dictator in Cuba.
That's right. And I think that they've got Tip O'Neill's number, and Senator Harkins, and Senator Dodd, and the rest of that bunch that has not learned from history.
That's right.
And they're just exploiting it for all they're worth.
That's right.
Unfortunately, the president doesn't have enough votes in the House of Representatives because it's so lopsidedly Democratic that I'll make this prediction right now. The Contras won't get the aid, and in time to come, it's going to be revealed as a great mistake, because unless we do something about Ortega now, in a couple of years it'll be too late.
But I think we are doing a lot.
Well, let's hope so. Thank you very much, dear. But there are people who, in their obsession, there are people who, in their paranoia, there are people who, in their disbelief that anybody would stand up to the mutants among us, there are people who cannot believe that they have suffered a severe setback. And when I say a setback, I mean that at long last, those who have been the victims, those who have been the prey, those who have been the targets of the marauders, say we are not going to be supine targets anymore. As you know, there's one columnist, a rather corpulent fellow, who has been known to take one drink too many, who keeps insisting that the letter that Arlen Specter, United States Senator, Republican from Pennsylvania, that he wrote to Robert Abrams, saying he was not satisfied with the disposition of the case, he wrote to Abrams, and what the mistake that he made was the letter should not have gone to the Attorney General, but should have gone to the governor. Well, now, lo and behold, the Attorney General is saying that it's up to the governor. Robert Morgenthau seems to indicate the same thing. So the fact of the matter is, if Mr. Goetz is re-indicted, only one person can make that ultimate decision, and that is the Chief Executive of the State of New York, Mario Cuomo.
Tomorrow morning, as anyone who knows, who has visited these shops throughout the metropolitan area, the busiest shops around at 11 a.m. will be crowds of white people in gun shops, equipping themselves with the proper paraphernalia. They are ready. The pistol ranges are loaded with white people who are getting ready to defend themselves.
You're daft. You're absolutely daft.
Okay, I'll tell you what you do.
You have an obsession with guns. Can't you call one time without sounding as though you're having an orgasm when you talk about guns? Maybe because you are. Maybe you do. Do you fondle your gun?
I'm motivated by a story.
Do you play with your gun?
No, I don't play with it at all.
What do you do with it?
Well, it's not in use right now.
But why are you so obsessed with your gun?
I'll put it to you like this. It's a close friend of mine. It saved me. I'm alive today because of it.
You're alive today because you walked down the street and you showed it to somebody and he practically fainted. Isn't that right?
3 times. I'm alive today.
3 times. Well, instead of just pulling it out and why don't you keep it out all the time?
Well, first of all, when I'm not in a dangerous situation, I have an automatic and I have the clip out of the gun. This is a lesson to the people out there. If you're going to buy an illegal gun this summer, make sure it's an automatic.
You're carrying an illegal gun?
Yes, because if you have an automatic and the clip is out of it, and if you should get caught, there's a very slim chance, because a cop can't walk up to you and search your bag without a reason. If you should get caught with the clip out of the gun, you will not get a serious penalty. So that's why most of the time the clip is out of my gun. I just put the clip in when I leave the car and I have to walk home to the house. That's a lesson for the people.
You ever kiss your gun?
Oh, of course not, Bob.
What do you mean, of course not?
No, I don't kiss my gun.
I've known of people who've actually been so fond of their guns that they actually have fallen in love with them.
Bob, I'll put it like this. I love innocent people.
As a matter of fact, in Greenwich Village, you can marry your gun.
Well, the reason...
And the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco.
Well, the reason I have spoken out several times is because I pity a person who has nothing to show, a knife-wielding mugger. That man or woman, he's going to be in a world of horror, and I predict this summer people will plan their vacations. They will go to areas where they know they can get guns easily. You can circumvent here. For instance, did you know that in Texas, what you do, you don't even have to give
Ladies and gentlemen, are you taking all this in? People are going to plan their vacations around purchasing a gun. I could just say, Clem, where do you want to go this year? Well, they got a good special guns down in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah, but what else are we going to do? Well, we can buy guns and go to the target range.
Bob, I want to tell you something.
I mean, do you really believe Mr. and Mrs. North America is going to be doing that this summer?
I really do. And I want to tell you something. I didn't think like this when I was younger, but the crime is far worse now. And I want to tell you something. One of the things that causes people to become victims of crime, and I really believe this, is alternate side of the street parking and restrictive parking. Very often, a person during the eerie hours of the morning, he can't park near his house because of this restrictive parking. He's forced to park the car many, many blocks away, and that means walking alone.
Why don't you get a sandwich board? I'm serious. Get a sandwich board. Keep it in the trunk of your car.
Bob, I'm trying...
And you work... No, wait a minute. Sandwich. You know what a sandwich board is, don't you? Okay, put it on. On the front, it'll say, I have a gun. And on the back, write the words, it's loaded.
I'm trying to save people out there, Bob. If I could be useful, it's because I was born, I could save one life.
Well, why don't you open up a pistol range?
In New York City, it's impossible with these pinko politics.
Why don't you open up a pistol range, and if a guy hits the bullseye, you can give him a Cupid doll. How about it? Come on.
Oh, if I were in Texas or something. It's so easy to fire a gun. There's a certain pistol range I go to out on Tropicana Avenue in Las Vegas. I'll tell you how to...
In Las Vegas?
Yeah. Well, when I go...
You mean you never practice unless you go to Las Vegas?
Oh, no, I practice in other areas closer by.
Yeah,
But I want to tell you something, Bob. It's so easy to shoot a pistol. There's a certain pistol range out there on Tropicana Avenue where a newcomer comes in and he wants to fire a pistol at the indoor pistol range. The man, he gives him a simple card with the instructions how to operate it. It's so easy.
I'm sure. Thank you very much for your call. Victory after victory. I'm thinking about the ACLU, for example. The ACLU, which unabashedly, unashamedly, and... I think scandalously, is more concerned with the rights of criminals than it is with the rights of society. I'm thinking of the fact that we've had pressure put on judges to issue rules saying that you couldn't have overcrowding in jails. Well, who the hell cares if they're overcrowded or not? If they can't do the time, don't do the crime. And if it's so crowded that they can't stand the propinquity of one another, maybe that's another good reason why they might behave if they go on the outside. But judges say, well, you can't have overcrowding, can't have more than one prisoner to a cell in this case, 2 prisoners to a cell in that case. But I say cram them in like sardines. Yes.
This is Bill from Queens. Bob, today in the New York Times we had the following. We had Tom Wicker advocating abandoning the MX missile. Then there was an op-ed article by a fellow of the Institute for Policy Studies, which is a Marxist-Leninist think tank. He was condemning U.S. policy in Central America. And then we had the story about Abe Rosenthal, the executive editor of the New York Times, who had the colossal arrogance to refuse a request by the Secretary of State not to print a story, which is very embarrassing to the United States, about contingency plans to put atomic weapons in certain friendly countries in the event of an emergency. Now, but by any objective standards, Bob, whose side is the New York Times on? Our side or the other guy's side?
Well, the New York Times is on the side of the New York Times. The New York Times, because it is a totally arrogant organization, feels that it is in touch with the truth and nobody else is, that it can be the arbiter of what is right and what is wrong.
They never seem to find anything that this country does that is satisfactory. They condemn this country endlessly. And, one thing that really puzzled me is this Institute for Policy Studies, which there seems to be some kind of a symbiotic relationship between that institute and the New York Times, because I see constantly articles by the fellows from that institute appearing in the New York Times, and they're always condemning the United States and always upholding these so-called communist liberation movements.
There's an old bucolic saying, never expect anything more than a grunt from a pig. And what would you expect from the New York Times? I mean, why you act like you just recently were introduced to the New York Times?
Well, Bob,
What do you expect from the Times anyway?
Well, I was absolutely shocked.
And why anybody would waste his time reading Tom Wicker is beyond me.
Yeah.
I mean, his columns are totally without any redeeming feature. At least Scotty Reston gives you a little humor.
Bob, you know that...
A little whimsy once in a while, but Tom Wicker has nothing of value to say, absolutely nothing.
Bob,
Anthony Lewis at least can get your blood boiling with his outrageous pro-Palestinian stance and his ultra-liberal views, but at least he can get you going. But Tom Wicker,
Bob,
totally worthless in any newspaper. What are you reading it for?
Bob, did you ever hear the veterans of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade? This is
Yeah, they were a bunch of commie-loving, Stalin-loving skunks.
Yeah, do you know that Tom Wicker a few months ago gave the keynote address?
I know.
Anniversary of this group.
I know, of course. Hey, he and Pete Hamill, they both love the Abraham Lincoln Brigade.
Yeah, well, okay, Bob.
I mean, the Abraham Lincoln Brigade was before my time, but I read enough of it, and I've known of some people who belong to the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. They were a bunch of red-loving, Joe Stalin-loving skunks.
They still are, Bob. They still advocate the communist line.
I know, but I mean, Joe Stalin even Joe Stalin, with all his brutality, they still thought he was a great guy.
No, apparently Tom Wicker does too.
Of course.
It's pretty frightening. A guy like this is one of the chief colleagues. In fact, he's an associate editor of the New York Times. Well, if they had some balance, Bob...
By the way, Tom Wicker doesn't like what you said about him, and he's got a message for you. Here it is. Are you ready? Oink, oink. Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
I was about to fall asleep. That guy woke me up.
It is, people have to just wise up. I just want to ask you one thing about Mario Cuomo, Bob.
Yes?
If his family was riding on a train on a late one night, who would he rather have get on the train? Canty and his friends, or Goetz with his gun? Who would he feel safer with his family?
Well, you know who he'd feel safer with, and he knows, but he'd never say it.
Didn't he say to you right on your show that he would abide whatever the grand jury says?
Yes, he did.
And then, as soon as they didn't indict him, he changed his tune?
Yes, he did.
Hello, Bob?
Yes.
This is Frank, Bob.
Yes, Frank.
Bob, I wanted to speak to you about the comment Mayor Koch made about the three stooges of the New York newspaper scene. And especially, Bob, the third one of that triumvirate, that fat pail of swill over at the Daily News, that disgusting drunken stumble bum who can't even button the collar of his shirt because perhaps he's always hit by a case of the shakes or the DTs. You know, Bob, this phony, this hypocrite, seems to find every excuse, every double standard to look for forgiveness when it comes to the type of criminal gutter scum that Bernard Goetz cleaned from the subways. You know, when it comes to polluted filth like them, he'll write in his column that their mommy didn't love them or their teacher misunderstood them. But if someone happens to be Italian and they're a criminal, immediately this racist filth puts in his column that perhaps it's some natural flaw of character. Perhaps it's inherent within the nationality of the people. You know, he uses his typewriter over at the Daily News as a spout and a spigot for his malicious hatred. If he had written about any other group in this country the way he writes about the Italian people, with his vehemence, why, he'd have been kicked off of their staff and blackballed in the industry, but he has carte blanche to do this. But you know, Bob, I can show you an example of what a hate monger he really is and how sick and twisted and distorted his mind is. When Robert Violante got shot by the son of Sam, Jimmy Breslin wrote in his column how he had gone up to Harlem and he had interviewed someone up there. And this person up there had said that, well, gee, as long as they're not coming up here and shooting black people, what do we care? That's not our problem. We don't care what they do to the white folk downtown. And yet, Bob Grant, Robert Violante's father said that he was amazed by all the cards and letters of sympathy he had gotten, by the large outpouring of sympathy that he had gotten from black people in this city. You see, Jimmy Breslin is a hater. He's a sick, twisted individual that will create a racist situation no matter what. And he is part of those other two stooges that are seeking to rip this city apart.
All right. Okay, Frank.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
From Riverdale?
Yes, Jack.
Tell me, now that Geraldine, the chinless wonder, made that soda pop commercial, you think will affect her politically or do any harm to her?
Well, I hope it harms her. I think, though, that the damage has already been done. I think her political career ended on the 6th of November, 1984.
Yeah, I'm more to agree with you, because I think her on that ticket.
I think after the novelty of her appearance on the ticket wore off, and people began to focus on the person behind the novelty, they realized that you had someone totally unqualified for that job, and they realized she was even unqualified for the job she held. And the fact that her personality came across as so abrasive turned a lot of people off.
And her husband?
It can only be done if there is a definitive new thrust of evidence, and thus far that has not happened. However, having answered your question from a legal point of view, or factual point of view, as the case may be, let me go on to a little expostulation, if I may, sir. The fact is, there are 50, 100, 150 radicals in the district attorney's office trying to pressure Morgenthau to re-indict. These are people who are not interested in the law. These are people who are interested in some kind of revenge that they should be too professional to even think of. Fams, lit on things for today till tomorrow. Your influence counts. Use it. Get Kaddafi.
You know, if these farmers lose their farms, okay, it cuts down on competition. You have monopolies running these farms.
Not so.
Not so.
Not so.
Okay.
You know, what have you been watching? A Jane Darwell movie, for heaven's sake?
Well, I think things are so screwed up in this country that...
And they're screwed up thanks to nincompoops like you, who want to equate his father bailing him out to a $210 billion farm debt that these guys have run up because they couldn't manage their own farms.
They speculated.
And we're supposed to... Speculated.
They speculated, and...
What speculators do we bail out? What speculators do we bail out?
But these guys were...
I know guys who speculate in the stock market. They lose every dime they've got. What should we do, bail them out?
No.
No. Well, then why the farmer?
Because it'll keep prices down.
As a matter of fact, the subsidies have kept prices up. Want to know something? I have to congratulate you. You got to be one of the dumbest guys I've talked to in a long time. I can't take it anymore.
Barry Slotnick, how are you?
Barry Slotnick?
That's correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Slotnick, one of the most renowned attorneys in New York City, a man I've known since about 1970, 1971, and an attorney representing Bernhard Goetz, right?
That's correct.
And
I have listened to your program every night since 1971, and I find tonight to be pathetic and amusing. The people are calling in and questioning what the grand jury did. They've been motivated by some fringe elements which have caused the newspapers to print these little out-of-context items. Bernhard Goetz was reviewed by a grand jury. They listened to all of the testimony. They listened to all of the audio tapes, 4 hours worth. They reviewed all of the videotapes. 2 hours worth. They heard the witnesses. And you know what they don't know? What they don't know is that they've been fed material out of context by some yellow journalists who have been trying to make this into a racist issue. You know what the bottom line is, Bob?
What's that?
The witnesses on the train that saw what happened to Bernard Goetz, when the police came and they said, "Where did that man go?" They pointed south, well knowing that Bernard Goetz had left the train and gone north.
Huh. That's an interesting revelation. Why hasn't that been brought to the public's attention before?
Because we really haven't been trying this case in the press and the media.
I think it's high time you take to the media, and you're taking a first step right here with a tremendous number of people listening, Barry.
Because I called Bob Grant because he's got credibility and integrity, and he knows what this is about. And I watched that videotape again last night for 2 hours, and every time I watch it, tears come to my eyes. You see a man who was put in fear, a man who had been beaten on prior occasions, a man who finally said, "Enough is enough." And these 4 victims, as Bill Kunstler is trying to characterize them, are really, without a question, as Bernard Goetz said, thugs. I spoke to Bernie early this afternoon. He's out of town working, putting some electronic equipment together, and he called me and he said, "You know, it just hit me. Are the people in New York trying to take my position as a victim away and put it on the laps of those thugs?" He said, "Barry, they surrounded me. They threatened me. When they surrounded me, everybody else in the subway car moved away because they knew that there was a problem. And I did the only thing possible. I tried to defend myself, and I was justified. I snapped. I got crazy. I became a monster only because I had had enough." And you know what? The grand jury heard all of that. And after hearing all of that, the grand jury determined that Bernard Goetz acted in a justifiable manner. Plus the fact, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York reviewed this entire matter. And not only did he find that it was not a violation of the civil rights laws, not only did he find that Bernard Goetz was not a racist, but he also made a determination that what Bernard Goetz did was in self-defense. And now we have these little fringe groups who want to make this into a racist issue, who are trying to split the city of New York apart. They're not going to succeed.
I applaud everything you've said. But, Barry, you, of course, are the legal expert. And I know a little something about the media and communications. And I see some incipient signs, not so incipient at that, some definite signs that a concerted and orchestrated attempt to put Bernard Goetz into a role that would not befit him is underway. I see approaches from various angles. For example, I happen to know, and I'm sure this comes as no surprise to you, you probably knew it before I did, there are many ADAs in Robert Morgenthau's office that have an obsession with this case. They are bringing pressure to bear on Mr. Morgenthau to try to re-indict. Now,
it is possible to re-indict. But before you can re-indict, you have to get permission of a judge and indicate to that judge that you have new evidence. Mr. Canty chose not to testify. Now, at the urging of his lawyers who are looking at all sorts of civil dollars, he suddenly decided that he's going to come forth and testify. I'd love to be in the grand jury and question him. I think we get some interesting revelations. But the fact of the matter is that as a matter of law, the district attorney of this county has no right to represent this case because he's got no new evidence. He's got a man who refused to testify because he didn't want to waive immunity. Suddenly the lawyers are now rushing to judgment, and they might even sacrifice Canty with the hope that they might be able to get a new indictment on Bernard Goetz. I sincerely doubt that even a new grand jury would indict Bernard Goetz, given a fair presentation.
And number two, I feel a little slighted. Bernard Goetz has become a very ubiquitous person. I see him on a couple of channels where he hasn't been particularly well received or sympathized with. And lo and behold, I see him interviewed in the newspapers, and he hasn't appeared on a Bob Grant show.
What a terrible oversight. Very seriously. Bernhard Goetz maintained a profile of a defendant, and you know I don't let my clients speak to the press and the media while they have present cases. I've been criticized for that, but I just feel that it's inappropriate. I don't want to try this case in the press, in the media. This case has to be tried in a courtroom. So therefore, Bernie has been muzzled by his lawyers. Last Sunday, a week ago Sunday, he felt compelled to go down to the criminal court to show a display of support for this poor young man by the name of Frederick.
Yeah, Andy Frederick.
Right. He called me in the morning and he said, Barry, I've got to go to the courthouse. I know what he went through. I know what he feels. He's another victim. I want him to know that I support him because I've gone through the criminal justice system the way he did. He was a victim attacked by thugs the way I was a victim attacked by thugs. And I protected myself, and I was just frustrated and angry, and I'm sorry that it happened. He protected himself, and I'm sure he's sorry that it happened, but we have no choice. He went to the criminal court and was besieged by reporters. As a result of that, he started to speak to reporters. I really would not have allowed that had I been there, and I urged him not to do that. Not that I'm worried about what he's got to say, but the fact of the matter is that he's got those that are looking to count every little word, his detractors.
Right.
And that's the basic problem at hand. I would have preferred, if I could have the 2 weeks back, that he'd not spoken to anybody. That he would have continued in his vein of silence, and that we would have been prepared to go to the courthouse. Of course, those that are able to pick up the small words and the semantics made hay. You have some columnist in Newsday, and I forgot his name. I spoke to him on the phone the other day. I called him a racist, and I hung up because he really is.
Crane?
Sounds right. His interest was really not one of fairness or fair reporting. His interest was strictly to talk to me about what he felt had happened and that a white man had shot some black boys. And I told him that's not what happened. What happened, very simply, was that a man by the name of Bernhard Goetz was attacked by 4 thugs in a subway. He refused to accept that. He made that a black and white issue. So as a result of that, I called him a racist, and I just hung up on him. And you know, I don't get angry at people that easily.
And you have people running for public office. Last week, we had Denny Farrell right here in this studio, who referred to Darrell Cabey as this child. He said then he took this child and shot him again, quote unquote.
Well, is he aware of the child's prior criminal record and aware of the people that the child hung around with and aware of perhaps some of the actions that are alleged to have been done by this child? Forgetting about the fact that he terrorized Bernhard Goetz on the subway, how many others are we not aware of? This child. He's out of town. He went, he's got to work. So he went to work. As you well know, Bernie is a nuclear physicist, and he calibrates equipment, among them nuclear equipment. He does some work for the government. He's got a high security clearance, and it was necessary for him to go back to work. He's had some difficult times since December 22nd. He's pulled himself together. He realizes that what happened was an unfortunate occurrence. As he said, he wishes the train was late, or that he was late, or he'd missed the train. But it happened, and he was there. And he was surrounded by 4 thugs, realizing that they looked to do him harm, that they were interested in harassing him and taking his money, and he reacted out of total anger and frustration, and justifiably because he thought they were about to attack him.
When did you
He got up to leave. Every waiter asked for his autograph. A man came over and shook his hand, and he said, Mr. Goetz, the night before December 22nd, my dad was mugged by 4 youths. We don't know whether it was the same people or not, but when he heard what you did in protecting yourself, it made him feel like a human being again. He even fantasizes that they were the same 4 people. And I wish I had done what you did. You are a hero. And Bernie said, no, I'm not a hero. I'm just an average guy.
Things for today. Until tomorrow, Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Kaddafi.
For Bob.
Yes.
Bob, did you get as much enjoyment as I did out of the story in today's paper about Representative Bob Dornan calling Representative Thomas Downey a draft-dodging wimp?
Well, I don't know about the draft-dodging part, but I love the fact he called him a wimp because he took the words right out of my mouth.
Right. I really think that something like that is really overdue. You know, I really think that this business of these representatives and senators calling each other, you know, my distinguished colleague from the state of so-and-so, and I think that's anachronistic when we got people like, you know, Stephen Solas and the rest of these characters, Ted Weiss and Thomas Downey. Really, I don't think there's anything these people do that would dismay the Russians at all. You know, it seems like everything they do is just to accommodate whatever objectives the Soviet Union has. And I think it's about time that, you know, I'm very, very delighted, and I'm glad you are too, with the way Bob Dornan dressed down this.
Well, you know, when I heard that Bob Dornan called Representative Downey a wimp, and I suppose he even grabbed him by the tie, and you know, he said he was just straightening his tie. My first impulse was to call him and congratulate him.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw cable TV tonight on Crossfire. They had Bob Dornan and Barney Frank, and they were discussing that. And Bob Dornan really lit into Barney Frank because he's of the same mold as
That's right.
Downey. And he really demolished the guy. It was really a pleasure. If you see Bob Dornan again, really give him my congratulations. He's the greatest.
What? About the what?
The farmers.
The farmers, yes.
Yes, the poor men who are out there working their heads off to try to feed the population.
Well, now, wait a minute. They're not out there working their heads off trying to feed the population.
Please, would you just let me finish?
I mean, you know, I'm getting a little sick and tired of it. People think this is the grapes of wrath. It's not the grapes of wrath.
I know what it is. But tell me this. You were so obnoxious to that gentleman that called in here a few minutes ago about giving the farmers loans so that they won't lose their homes and their properties, etc. But I didn't hear you say anything about Lee Iacocca with all the millions that we gave him, and he's only private industry.
Well, you know why you didn't hear me say anything about Lee Iacocca? Because you weren't listening to me. In 1979, when they floated that loan, were you? That was in 1979.
When this man said about the farmers, you said that, should we all be giving money to each other?
That's right.
It's a good idea. Every time the American people started giving each other money instead.
What is this, a tape going backwards?
No, it's not the tape going backwards. It's the truth, and you know it. But it seems to me that every time we're talking about the working people, you try to pretend that they're a bunch of nuts.
I don't think they're a bunch of nuts. I don't think Mr. Langman is a nut. I don't think the other gentleman from Rushford that I talked to is a nut, Mr. Bemke.
No,
I think they're very nice, very decent, very wonderful people. But where does it all end? I mean, you know, okay, I'll play the game. Hey, guess what? I'll be a big phony. Okay.
You are.
Yeah, let's give him a loan. Let's give him. You want to pay the taxes for it? Hello. She hung up. Either that or her adenoids dropped. Let me talk to those guys out in Minnesota again, will you? They have a calming effect on me. And was a total disaster as a president in every way.
Sure, when people kept...
He was an aberration.
When people slugged him in the head and banged him over the back and made...
Hey, look, if a guy's not vulnerable, you could hit all you want. They used to hit FDR pretty hard.
Superman, we're talking about a human...
They used to hit the FDR pretty hard. It didn't faze him. They hit Harry Truman pretty hard. Oh, give me that. You sound like a neophyte.
No, sir. They didn't hit him hard because he had power.
They did. Jimmy Carter was a disgrace, was a disaster. And if he weren't, he wouldn't have gone down to ignominious defeat.
You know, I heard a while back that every civilized country subsidizes their farmers. Now, they included all of Europe, all the countries of Europe, and Japan. They all get their government help. Now, what I'd like to know is, why can't we do that here?
Do you want to do that here?
I think we could do it.
Do you want to do that? I didn't ask whether we could. Do you want to do that?
Personally, yes.
The American farm produces more agricultural products in greater abundance, in greater quality as well as quantity, As a matter of fact, with 6% of the world's population, we could feed the whole wide world.
Thank God.
So why do we want to imitate our lessers? You know, if would you would have wanted Fred Astaire to emulate Misha Auer when it came to dancing? I mean, what's the matter? You know, people are dumb. I got to get out of this work. I can't take the dumbness. I cannot take the dumbness. You hear about some people having distress with a farm, and you say, I think we could subsidize our farmers the way the socialist countries of the rest of the world do. Take 2 aspirin. Go to bed at once. I can't believe it. I just take a deep breath. Count to 7. You'll never make it to 10. Count to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
It's not saving them.
Well, we just had a lady on the line that said we ought to subsidize our farming in a socialist manner, like they do in, as she says, every civilized country except ours has subsidized their farmers. The subsidies paid to American farmers total $112 billion over the last fiscal year. I don't know what the heck. I don't know how much more we could do.
Where is she from? She should go back.
Well, where she's from, she's a Native American, I'm sure. Thank you very much for your call.
You're welcome.
Let's see, is there something else that I could do and make the same amount of money that wouldn't be this? Now, if anybody knows, please let me know. I don't think I can take this much more. I really don't. Okay.
Ever figure how we will eat without farmers?
No kidding. Gee, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a staggering thought.
I heard.
Therefore, we shouldn't let any farm go under, even profligate farmers who made bad loans.
Oh, no. They are not going to be refinanced. Any farmers who made bad loans will never be refinanced. Bad loans are never refinanced.
Oh.
The 2 men you talked to today did not make bad loans.
They didn't make bad loans?
No.
The one farmer signed on a bad loan. Maybe he didn't make it, but he co-signed. Anyway, we'll think about that driving home. That without farmers, would we eat?
Think about it.
Okay. Thank you very much for your call, ma'am. Nice chatting with you. That slams lid on things for tonight. Until tomorrow, don't forget Tom Kane, Bob Grant, reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Kaddafi. But for the nonce and for the record, both of you, Governor O'Neill has rescinded his post-11 p.m. edict. Yes, you can call from Connecticut. If you choose to avail yourself of the rescission of the edict, it's 335 WABC.
From the East, you were sort of getting on Jimmy Breslin's case about a certain statements he made in some interview or something. But on the March 3rd column, they call it their Bumpers case. There's an article on the shooting here in the Westchester Square station of Paul Fava. And this officer, Marvin E. Yearwood, apparently shot this fellow in the head for no reason. I don't understand it. It comes awfully close to, because I'm always in that station. And I think it's wrong. I'm glad the grand jury's going to investigate this case, and he was suspended. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to hang up or anything.
Yeah, well, I'm familiar with the case, and...
They were black officers. There were 2 of them, Bob.
Didn't I tell you I was familiar with the case?
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, well, so why are you reiterating the fact that they were black officers? Why are you doing that?
Well, I'm just reiterating what I read in Jimmy Breslin's column.
Oh, you didn't know it before you read Breslin's column?
No, I didn't, Bob.
Isn't that amazing? It certainly is amazing to me, because it was reported. Anyway, let's see, what was I going to say to you before you distracted me with that unnecessary, gratuitous, superfluous information? I can't recall, except I was about to tell you, oh yes, I was about to tell you that the man has been suspended without pay that an announcement from the police department had said he did not act within prescribed guidelines, that the guidelines do not call for the gun to be cocked in a situation such as that. That's what I was going to tell you.
I know, because it all started over light bulbs being thrown for the station. And
that's right. You know, you're talking to me like I just arrived in town. You make me feel like some gabon just got off a boat.
No, I mean, but, you know, over there you got this Bronx Psychiatric Center. You got a lot of buildings where these kids get on the station. They throw light bulbs. The other day I saw a girl from Lehman High School pull a knife out on another girl at that stop right there. And I just think, you know, hope justice is done, Bob. That's all I have to say.
Well, I agree.
Okay, Bob. Keep up the good work.
Thank you for the call, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Bye. I tell you one thing, though. I don't want to be put in the ground. I want to be put in a drawer. You know, about eye high. That's all I'm thinking about now. Got to get out of here.
Bob, please don't get tired, because really, no one can have as much fun as you working.
Really?
Yeah, you do, really. It's an unusual job, and sometimes you do have a lot of fun, more than most of us have at work. That's that.
Well, you see, I'm being punished. You see, God is punishing me because I wanted to avoid working.
Yeah.
I did this, see, instead. But now I'm being punished because it's getting to be torture. I mean, I should be at home asleep. I'm a type A. I'm an early riser and an early to bed person.
Early to rise. Well, you know.
You know, all you got to do in this business is say, "Oh, I prefer to be out in the daytime." They put you on at night. Now, if I were smart, I would have said, "Oh, I love nights." They put me on in the daytime.
Well, next contract, you know what to do.
That idiot, that she sounds like she swallowed Brillo 5 years ago and has been talking through a Brillo pad since then.
It's foaming.
To have her ask such an absurd question, you know, it's more than I can handle. What time is it? Let's see. It's 11. I have 44 more minutes of this torture left to go. Out. Well, it's easy. You know, I could have such an easy life if I would be a big phony and agree with everybody. Somebody calls and says, "Hey, we should help the farmers." I say, "Yeah, you're right. We should help the farmers." A senior citizen calls and says, "I should get more." And I say, "Yes, you should get more." And then a young person calls and says, "They shouldn't tax me so much to pay for the senior citizens." And I say, "You're absolutely right. Just agree with everybody, that's all."
Yeah, that's true. But listen, where do you get your patience from?
I don't have patience.
You have no patience. Boy, I can't believe it.
No.
I love you one night, and the next night I says, "What the hell is he doing there?"
Well, I tell you, I don't belong here tonight because I'm absolutely out of my mind.
Patience, like you say.
No, as a matter of fact, that's why I'm here, because I'm out of my mind.
No.
I mean, you know, if I... Listen. If I were in command of my faculties, would I be here? Would I be here doing this?
No, I suppose not.
I mean, you know, shoveling into the wind, and you know what I'm shoveling into the wind. Sand, of course.
I know what. And you've been going from one station to another?
Now, wait a minute. I haven't been going from one station to another.
How many? Three?
I started out at a station that brought me out here from the West Coast.
Oh.
And I only came out from the West Coast because I had made some bad investments, and I needed a job. Otherwise, I never would have left. You know, you don't think a guy comes to New York because he wants to, do you?
No, of course not.
Of course not.
But listen.
Bob, Billy from Manhattan. How you doing?
How am I doing?
Here
Here I am in the studio at 20 minutes past 11 on the radio yet, and you ask how I'm doing.
And I'm ready to go to sleep.
But I'll tell you something. As long as there are people like you calling, I guess I'll make it.
Bob, let me ask you a question. You appear at San Gennaro Feast again?
Probably never.
You're kidding.
Nah, I got sick and tired of that. You know, what the heck? For what? What do you feel? You know, it's so crowded that I got tired of that. And the cannolis kept getting smaller and smaller. And the Schvilladel, they load them up with so much powdered sugar you can't even see them. What the heck? That's the only reason I used to go there, was to schnur some pastries. You don't think they paid me, do you?
Downey, are you kidding?
Arthur T.C., if you're listening, eat your heart out.
All they're doing is taking the money of the saints. God knows where that money's going.
Yeah, hey, Benedict. Oh, hey. Hey, Don Bep is going to be listening to this. Don Bep. Paul Lino's Menage. Hey, Grant, don't make fun of the fish. Hey. Hey, how come you say them things about the fees?
Get a big kick out of you, Bob.
Hey, what are you doing, Mulberry Street? We're going to take a picture off the wall in the place there. What place is that? You know the place? No, I don't know the place. Will you please tell me the name of the place? You ain't going to eat there no more either. No more scungili for you. I don't like scungili anyway. No wonder. You know what place I'm talking about, don't you? I can't even think of the name of it.
Wait up.
They made Joey Gallo a banana in that place. Umberto's.
I know the place you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, my picture's on the wall at Umberto's. Did you know that?
Umberto's, yeah.
Yeah.
I never ate there.
Huh?
I never ate there.
You know, if you want to sit at the Joey Gallo table, there's a 10% surcharge. Really? People go ahead. I was saying that on the air. I was at another station at the time, obviously, because they were playing music here at that time. But I said it on the air at another station, and people are going into Bobby Iannello and Paula Iannello, and they're saying, oh, we'll pay the 10% surcharge. We'd like to sit at the Joey Gallo table. Is this the table he was sitting at when he got shot?
The people are bots.
Yeah, oh, bots. Thanks for the call, sir.
They're bots.
Okay, bye.
Is not one of their own making. When we can give Israel about $5 billion, which is the figure that they are asking this time, free, that is not something to be paid back. And for that, we have to accept the imports of oranges and tomatoes and be responsible for the and take the bullshit about settlements in Israel, all the negative adverse comment about this country because of the reputation they give us in the United Nations and elsewhere. I think that a small age, 2 farmers, which amounts to about $500 million in this case, is a very small amount to pay. Also,
where are you from, sir? Sir, where are you from?
When you consider, let me just finish one more point.
It's interesting. I'm asking this gentleman a question with all due respect, and the gentleman refuses to answer me.
Most of the New Yorkers work in what I call service industries. And that means hustling insurance, hustling money, green mail, all kinds of stuff like this. The farmers at least do an honest piece of work from early morning to late at night. And it's only when they meet, farming was supposed is one of our greatest industries, in a way. And we are getting into a situation where we're importing recorders, TV sets, even computers, cars, etc. from Japan. Who do you think is going to make anything in this country? Certainly not the New Yorker.
Speaking of in this country, how long have you been in this country? And were you anti-Israeli before you got here or since you've got here?
I happen to be not so much anti-Israeli as what I consider...
Just plain old anti-Jewish, is that right?
Not at all. Not anti-Jewish at all. But...
well, then why did you feel it incumbent upon you to make those snide remarks about Israel?
Because
under the guise of being the friend of the farmer...
It's not under the guise at all. It's in connection with...
Why did you feel it necessary to conduct that diatribe against Israel? Why did you feel that was necessary?
Do you know that if
Kannst du auf der Klavier spielen?
amount of money to each family in this country...
Kannst du auf der Klavier spielen?
Family in Israel...
Du kannst nicht auf der Klavier spielen.
Look, first of all, learn to speak before you do. I don't know what...
Du kannst nicht auf der Klavier spielen.
Brains is something that you don't have.
Well, you know, if I felt that way, I wouldn't waste my time listening to somebody.
And I don't listen to you.
Oh, you don't listen? Then how do you know what I said?
I happened to listen to Governor Kane,
and you couldn't find the switch to turn the radio off after he left.
Well,
how did you even know Governor Kane was going to be on unless you had tuned in to me before?
I wanted to hear what additional comments are made about his speech and what additional questions arise.
I see. Are you reticent to tell us where you're from?
What country? What country? What do you mean, what country I come from?
Well, I don't mean your street address.
I'm Jewish.
You're Jewish?
Yes.
Then why are you anti-Israeli?
Because Israel is a state that shouldn't exist.
Shouldn't exist.
Doesn't have...
Well, where are you from?
Anyway,
Why do you keep avoiding telling me where you're from?
What do you mean? I'm Jewish.
Where were you born and you're not Jewish, you liar?
And being Jewish, it means that you're a fifth column in any country.
You're not Jewish at all. You know, you don't even have the decency
I'm a Hasidic Jew.
Do you expect anybody to believe that? Even those dummies that were calling, talking about the farm program, do you think even they'll believe that?
Of course they would. Do you know that...
Look, I have a policy here. You can stay on and argue with me, but when you expose yourself as being a liar and a fraud, you're out the door.
Another point that you missed tonight was the fact that you said all the Jews originated from the Mideast. Actually, about 90% of the Jews come from Khazaria, which is today's Central Russia. And
this man's whole life is consumed with anti-Semitism. There's never a dull moment for him. That slams it on things for today until tomorrow, I think. Your influence counts. Use it. Get Kaddafi. We see that Paul Needlenose Menadge's name is conspicuous by its absence from the story that the FBI has mob tapes, and on these tapes they've named some top pals. That's short. That's newspaper talk for politician. Never could understand why. I don't worry about what I'm saying over the telephone. I guess because I'm not saying anything I'm going to be worried about. Wouldn't that be silly if I would worry about what I said over a telephone? I mean, when you're a big mouth and you talk over a 50,000-watt radio station, 5 days, sometimes even 6 days a week, woofa. You can't afford to want to keep secrets.
For these young gentlemen, in quotes.
Oh, young gentlemen, come on, cut it out. Stop being so conscious that you're on the radio. Talk the way you would if you were just talking. Come on.
Okay.
Young gentlemen. Those thugs, those mutants, those marauders.
Okay.
I also wanted to say, you had a caller yesterday that said she hoped that Daryl Cabey would have croaked. I think that would have been a very bad thing for Goetz. And also, I hope that he recovers enough. They say he's neurologically a 2. I hope he gets to be about a 5, so that when he's strapped in his wheelchair, he's fully aware of what happened to him. I mean, why should he just be laying on a respirator, unaware and not suffering? I like him to be strapped in a wheelchair, know he's crippled, and then poetic justice. I'd like someone to come across with a screwdriver and take $5 out of his pocket.
What kind of city is this? What kind of city is this when a mutant skunk, a louse, stabs a teacher for no reason, and when asked why he did it, he says, I had a bad day.
Well, don't you and I take out our bad days by stabbing people?
Right. You heard about, now we call him Suspect Roy Green. You heard about him.
Bye.
I'm going to cut everybody short who's on the defensive. Anybody who's on the defensive who shouldn't be, I'm going to cut them short. I'm going to save, I don't care about your agenda, but I can take just so much. I've never heard so many people who have less reason to be on the defensive be on the defensive. And you know what? I got to give the liberals, aided by the pigeon-livered media, credit. They did it. They did it.
Hey, Bob, you called off from last night? You were pretty happed up last night.
I don't know. The slightest thing could trigger me. I'm a Pisces.
In my phrasing my question.
Yeah, you see, I'm a Pisces, and I need a vacation. I've been working too hard. I was not. When I came into this world, it was announced that this man shouldn't work too hard and be under too great a strain. And lately, I've been working too hard.
Well, I'll tell you, I listen to that C-SPAN every once in a while, and the evening news, and I hear that left-winger from Long Island, Tom Downey, and I see that skinny little run up there. He never says anything good about the country. Never. Not alone. And he never says anything good about our president. And,
well, all I can say is God bless Congressman Robert Dornan.
And the thing with him is that bothers the hell out of me. Such a skinny runt.
Well, what, are you jealous because he's skinny?
What?
What, are you jealous because he's skinny?
Oh, no. But he looks like he's a GD wimp.
Well, you know, his looks have got nothing to do with it.
I found out on Crossfire 2 nights ago that he was a lousy draft dodger.
Well, you know, he was afraid to go on with Dornan on Crossfire, so he sent Barney Frank in to substitute for him.
Another winger.
Okay, listen, pal. Thank you very much.
I'll get him.
WABC Talk Radio Time, 10:16. Bob Grant here. I want to congratulate Bob Graham, the great governor of Florida. I want to congratulate Governor Graham because he has assured the people of Florida that there is one less predator, one less beast, one less two-legged monster who will murder the good citizens of his state. In Stark, Florida, one less skunk to worry about. Johnny Paul Witt was executed yesterday in Florida's electric chair for stalking, sexually abusing, and mutilating and killing an 11-year-old boy. Witt, 42 years of age, convicted for the fatal assault on the son of a University of South Florida professor in Tampa, died at 7:10 a.m. Oh, there's one less mutant to worry about, and congratulations to Governor Bob Graham.
I don't want any name calling, but I have to take a different vein than you.
Wait a minute, you said, wait a minute, this is Bob.
Yeah?
You said, back in December, you said next month you were moving to Salt Lake City. Okay, you're in Salt Lake City.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was on the air. Forgive me, okay? Wayne from Queens, how you doing tonight? Bob,
Did you just hear that last caller?
Yes, I did.
And then you have the nerve to ask me how I'm doing?
Okay, I know you...
I mean, what is this? How are you, Bob? How you doing, Bob? How are things, Bob? I tell you what, we'll just call it the social hour. We won't discuss issues.
Been so long that
I mean, what is all this? How are you, Bob?
Bob, I called to...
I think from now on I'm gonna bring back an old rule. An old rule I'm gonna dust off and bring back.
What?
You ask how I am, I hang up.
Okay. Bob, I called to respond. You had a couple callers ago who was from Fishkill, New York, okay? And he mentioned that a fellow got in a loud argument with Earl Caldwell, and I was the fellow that got in the argument with Earl Caldwell. He was on a program talking about how much...
You know, it's a funny thing, Wayne.
Go ahead, Bob.
We have more cleaning people in this building than we do offices. It's the only building where the cleaning people outnumber the offices. I mean, I swear, I would love to see the payroll for the cleaning people. They're all fine people. They're all good. When you never see them until I start hollering, then they all come in.